Central Standard Time, and oh, for all of our people out there, it's Patriot AM 1150, and on and on and on, from 6 to 8. Oh my gosh, it's a whole lot, but we're so glad that you're with us every Sunday. Call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673, and let's talk about the Chauvin verdict and so much information that we found out in the aftermath. Now, the Department of Justice from the United States government will be there investigating the patterns and practices of the Minneapolis police force. What is going on, everybody? What did you make of the verdict? Were you surprised? Do you think there's going to be an appeal? What do you think? What do you think? What about the other three officers who are going to be tried later on this year? We got a lot to talk about, everybody. Indeed, this week's Twitter poll was revelatory. The question was simply, will the Chauvin verdict change policing in America for better, for worse, or not at all? Thus far, you have said 31% of you say that we will have better policing. 9% of you say that we will have worse policing. And 59% of you said that there will be no change at all. So we got to talk about that today. Call us at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673 as we live stream on the Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior page and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page and on my YouTube channel. That's right, the Santita Jackson Show. So please go to Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior. Hello, Daryl and Deborah and Shirley from Philadelphia and Sharon. Like and share, everybody. Let's create some watch parties so we can talk about what's really going on up in Minneapolis right now. And Brooklyn Center, of course, we dedicate the show in a special way today to Dante Wright's family. They buried their son and their brother and father. Left behind a little boy, everybody, this week. Got to talk about all of that. And of course, go to your iHeart station at Patriot AM 1150, or just go to the iHeart app and key in Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. You'll be able to hear us. We're on Instagram at Rev J Jackson, at Santita Jackson IG, and of course at Twitter, on Twitter. Please reach out to Reverend and answer the poll question at Rev J Jackson, at Rev J Jackson, and at Santita J. This past week, former Minneapolis police officer, then Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all three counts: second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter. He was found guilty of those crimes, killing George Floyd. What do you think about that? He could face up to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder, up to 25 years for third-degree murder, and up to 10 years for second-degree manslaughter. However, many legal experts speculate that the actual sentences would likely be much lower because he has no prior conviction. So what do you think about that, everybody? How does that make you feel? What does that make you think about the system? Of course, we have to look at the tremendous job that the state attorney general, former Congressman Keith Ellison, did marshaling this through. I think we need to hear from our panel to find out just how rare it is for uh, an officer to be indicted, let alone convicted. In fact, this is the first time in the history of the state of Minnesota that anything like this has ever happened. And behind that, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced a federal probe into policing in Minneapolis. And he conceded that Chauvin's conviction does not address the systemic racism and violence by officers. Now, get this, everybody. A 2020 New York Times report found that Minneapolis police used force against black people at a rate at least 7 times that of, of white people from 2015 to 2020. 7 times more. A 2020 NBC News report found something else disturbing. Between 2015 and 2020, Minneapolis police used neck restraints 237 times, and in 16% of those incidents, the suspects and other individuals lost consciousness. Now, mind you, this is a city that is 19% black, but 60% of those subjected to those neck restraints were black and rendered unconscious, everybody. 30% were white, 2 were Native American. Almost all were male, and 75% were 40 or under. Wow. Got a lot to talk about, everybody, as the Justice Department opens its investigation. What will all of that mean? We're going to bring on Reverend Jesse Jackson on the other side of the break so we can get some reaction from him, because he was there, as you could see, all week. And so Pastor Jerry McAfee, who's been really marshaling the troops up there, the senior pastor of really the most prominent black church in the state, New Salem Missionary Baptist Church in Minneapolis. And Spike Moss will be on with us in the second hour. Minneapolis political organizer and activist. Worked with so many of our young people. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, president of the National Bar Association and chair of Rainbow Push. Kevin Gray, his book has now gotten a new bump in sales. He doesn't like the way this happens, but this is what it is. His book, he's the author and editor of the best-selling Killing Trayvons, an anthology of American violence, former president of the ACLU of South Carolina. Attorney Robert Patillo will be joining us later from Rainbow Push Atlanta. Reverend Frank Watkins is here, co-author, the 20th anniversary edition of A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights. We cannot wait to hear from him. Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary in the second hour. Senior pastor, Douglas Memorial Community Church, Jonathan Jackson, Rainbow Push national spokesman. So please like and share, everybody. Like and share, and let's talk about the Chauvin verdict. You will already call it in. Love it. So call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. Let's talk about it. Be back in just a minute. Okay, we can get. Do we have Reverend or is that Jonathan?
Jonathan.
Okay. Okay, Jonathan. Jonathan?
Yes.
Hey, we got Pastor McAfee on with you and Attorney C.K. Hoffler.
Attorney Hoffler. Hey, Reverend McAfee.
Good morning, and good morning to everyone.
Greetings. Salutations.
Well, we're going to keep you and Pastor McAfee, we're going to keep you and Jonathan on mute because we don't know what you all are going to say. So I just thought I'd just put that in there. What fires you all are going to set this Sunday morning? Oh my gosh. Golly. I'm trying to keep the show on the air. Not trying. But we have Frank Watkins with us too. He said, "Oh, you're calling me. I know so much about this." You know, Frank Watkins has been Reverend's communications director for more than 50 years. I think he knows a little something.
Yeah.
So, but Pastor McAfee, we really do need to hear what all of this means when we get on the other side. Of course, we are on Facebook now. Let me plug this so everybody can hear. Hello. Hey, hey, hey. Good to see you all today. And we're going to be talking about the Derek Chauvin verdict. What do you think about this? Kay Parks, you said accountability. Kevin Brooks says, good morning to you, Jonathan. D. Ray Jones, hey, hey. Renee, Hannah from South Carolina, hey, hey, hey. Eric Burrows, how you doing? From L.A., hey, hey. Renee Criswell, right from here in Chicago. And Melinda from Arkansas. Thank you so much, everybody. Share, like and share. Nadine, how you doing? Vicky Jarvis, Vandelay down there in Brazil, sending you much love. Adrian Fountain, Kevin Brooks from Atlanta. And Jose, you are from Brazil, sending you all my Brazilian brothers and sisters, sending you all much love. And Sharon Banks from Memphis, Tennessee. Love you down there. We used to have so much fun growing up. Jonathan, did we have fun at the Kyle's house when we were in Memphis growing up?
Wonderful time.
Oh my gosh. It was big, big fun. Pastor McAfee, they had this big pool, big basketball court and tennis court. And our mother and father didn't let us stay just anywhere. And boy, we had some fun. Oh boy, had a good time. But is Reverend here?
Yep.
Okay, Reverend Jackson? Reverend? Daddy?
Just a minute, please.
Okay, no worries.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You all, I try to keep it professional.
No,
When he
you use the operative word.
that's when I get a response.
You're going to go Reverend. You knew how to get it.
What? I don't get
Daddy all over.
I don't get it.
Poor Jonathan, Jesse, poor fellas.
Ooh, I'm like, what? Hey, I'm trying to keep this together here. Hey, Melinda. And let me see. Mo Talk with Mo Swag. Love it from Dallas, Texas. How you doing? Everybody like and share, like and share. Earl Smith from Georgia. Linda watching from Alabama. Wow, you all over the place today. Well, we are talking about this trial, so I want you to weigh in. Think about giving us a call at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673 if the lines are busy. Just continue to call back 1-866-594-4673, and let's hear what your thoughts are. Because we do have three more police officers who are going to be tried. What do you think about that? Hmm. Reverend, are you up, Daddy?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, very good. No need to rush. Okay, Pastor McAfee, I got it. But here we go. Dad?
Yes,
Okay, we're coming back.
very well.
Okay, do you have your notes?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, you just off the top of your head, we're going to go to Pastor McAfee too, okay?
Oh my
Yeah, exactly what I said. But I said, I said, oh, Jonathan's happy. Jonathan's with us right now. So hold on, Dad. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson, the sounds of the great sounds of blackness. Minneapolis. That's right, Gary Hines and company. We love them so much. We're talking on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson about the Chauvin verdict. Will it change policing in America for better, for worse, or not at all? Thus far, 59% of you say there will be no change at all. 9% of you say that the policing will be worse. And 31% of you say that, well, things can improve. So we've got to talk about this with Reverend Jesse Jackson, of course, who is the host of this program, Reverend Frank Watkins, his communications director of more than 50 years, the co-author of the 20th anniversary edition that will be coming out of A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights, and of course, the president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest black bar association in the world, chair of Rainbow Push, Jonathan Jackson, who is also the national spokesman for Rainbow Push, but leading our panel today, Pastor Jerry McAfee, really one of the leaders in our church. And our church was so blessed to have him and all the work that he's been doing in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Of course, senior pastor of the New Salem Missionary Baptist Church in Minneapolis. Of course, they hosted Reverend Jackson this past week. Well, these past couple of weeks that Reverend's been up there. Reverend Jackson, good morning. You sounding well? Mm-hmm. Hmm. Wow. Hmm. Pastor McAfee, what do you make of all of this? Reverend Jackson, when you were there this week, well, let me kick this to Jonathan Jackson because at least I didn't see. I mean, I was able to see most of this on television. Jonathan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I too, like many people, had a sigh of relief. I thought Attorney Ellison's words were well chosen. That this is accountability, not necessarily justice. And I would like to see this go to the higher level. We're talking about failing communities. Father Reverend Jackson had said some months ago, we have to talk not only about patrol, but control. the patrol of the policemen, the control are those cities' founders, those heads of the corporations that need to make an investment in this. Most of these municipalities have budgets for the police department that are exceeding 10% of their entire budget. Think about what the future of that holds, and it's only rising. Out of every $10, out of every $100, $10 is going to policing in every municipality. Nationwide, over $190 billion is being spent on policing and patrolling and incarceration. That's not sustainable.
Well, what do we make of these charges? Yes, Reverend.
In Montgomery, Rosa Parks challenged the Supreme Court decision 54 would be applied to Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
They won the Supreme Court fight in 56. The bar was not the victory, it was the process. The victory was the 56 legal decision. So it was a Supreme Court decision, won at the Supreme Court level. The states' right decision. So Micaiah Jackson dies in Columbus and all that. Todd, Adam in Chicago. And so we need to fight for the law. We must make police sovereign immunity illegal. Illegal election illegal. That requires law. Not a touchdown. It's first down.
Well, what difference will the law make, and how hard will it be to get this law passed? Frank Watkins, you've been on the Hill. You see now a Republican senator, Tim Scott, out of South Carolina, is trying to negotiate this with his Republican colleagues. Do you think it will work?
Well, I think we need to keep a serious monitoring of that. What he put together last Congress was so weak that he couldn't pull it off. I mean, it just wasn't happening. So they're trying to deal with the part that holds the police personally responsible. That's I don't know, the legal some liability, that limited liability that the police currently have, and they're trying to get rid of that, so that I think both the policemen and the department are held responsible for any killing that a police person does that is considered unjustified, that they would be personally, and the department would be held accountable. That seems to be the stick that's holding up the bill from passing. In the Senate, it's already passed in the House, 220 to 212. There were 219 Democrats and one Democrat, Gooden, from the 5th District in Texas, voted yes, and then there were 210 Republicans that voted no, including 2 Democrats that voted no. Golden from Maine, 2nd District, and Kine from Wisconsin's 3rd District. So it's already passed the House. It's in the Senate, and it's tough sledding in the Senate to get it passed in a form that will make some difference. I'm not sure how significant the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is really a down payment on what more should be done to really achieve justice in this society.
Pastor McAfee, how are people reacting in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Brooklyn Center? Because, of course, in the midst of this, we buried Dante Wright. In the midst of this, Nakia Bryant was killed. In fact, we've had quite any number, according to this news report, after Derek Chauvin verdict, 6 have been killed by police across the United States of America, just in a 24-hour period.
Well, I think one, especially as it pertains to Brooklyn Center, we've seen the dissipation and the occupation of the precinct. I think people are breathing a sigh of relief, and I pray that they don't get too at ease. because I am of the opinion that just like years ago when the protest started, that when the officers don't feel that there's any level of accountability there from internal affairs, nor what we have up here at the peace, that is business as usual for some. And so if we don't get those other laws pushed through before even the feds do what they're going to do, it's not going to help. So I think we relaxed a little bit because so much was going on, but I think the fire will pick back up soon.
Santita,
Yes, Reverend.
Mr. Freeman believed we first went to Brother Attorney General.
Reverend
Attorney General
Ellison. Yes.
Ellison. And Mr. Freeman was in charge. He didn't believe it could happen. We met with him, Reverend Maxwell. He tossed it to Keith. Keith fired the 4 police officers immediately. The prosecutorial team, Keith Ellison, the jury, Keith Ellison deserves much credit. Without Keith, it wouldn't have happened. Most of the stations wouldn't have happened. He deserves much credit, Santita.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pastor McAfee?
Big first down, but not a touchdown.
But, well, I mean,
what applies everywhere.
well, Pastor McAfee, this has never happened in the state. I mean, in fact, this is just very rare, just nationally, for a police officer to be indicted, let alone convicted, and convicted on all of the charges.
Well, remember, the first one was Mohammed Noor, which was the black dude, Somalian, and the white lady, Justine. And it was major in that, Keith, the way and manner in which this transpired. Now, what's interesting is most people don't know that Keith has a great background. The first day I met Keith, over 30-some years ago, we was protesting at North High School against police brutality. He was in law school at the time, and he was on an opposing side of the community. We was on the other. And so we all had a meeting of the minds that day and understood that we probably are better together than we are being separate. He then graduated. He did some stuff with one firm. Then he became the head of the Legal Rights Center here. So he's well-rounded. Matter of fact, Keith played a major role in all of the summits that we did across the country dealing with gang violence. Keith was one of the main lawyers there. So what people got a chance to see, just like with Chief Arredondo, is someone that have come up through the community, who have a special tie to the community and been fighting for a long time. And so, there is no question when it first happened in our hood, people was concerned, what Keith's going to do. And I shared with them then, Keith do what Keith has always done. If Keith lose, it will not be because he ain't put together a good team. When Keith and I spoke about Mike Freeman, here's what he said to me. And let me say this. People got different things about Mike. My experience have been different. He said, Mike is the only one in the history of Minnesota that has tried a police officer and got him convicted. And so he brought Mike. He brought Jerry Blackwell. He brought a gentleman out of retirement. And so that's what it's going to take for us to win all over the country. If you follow the model, we had a police that's connected to the community with integrity. You had other detectives that was connected to the community. You had an attorney general that was connected to the community with a heart for right and righteousness. Hence, you get a verdict. If you have any breakdown in any one of those things, there's no way in the world we can win.
Pastor McAfee, before you go, what do you want us to know? I mean, where do we go from here? Because now we've got the Dante Wright trial, and then of course people are going to all over. We're going to be looking to see how Ma'Khia Bryant's case is handled, and on and on and on. And these 6 other people who've been killed by the police in a 24-hour period.
Well, for us, I believe we must work along parallel paths. That while police brutality and what they do to us is egregious, what we do to each other pales to what the police have done. because all over this land and country and every urban area, black folk killing black folk and shooting black folk at alarming rates. We've got to, the same attention that's put on the police, we got to get back in our own communities and start organizing our brothers and sisters to slow down, stop the violence. Let's not create a need for more police. And so our focus will be intensified on what we've been doing to each other. And last night we had a great meeting, with a lot of the different brothers and sisters from different parts of the country, as we start making the move to work hand in hand with the movement against the police. We're going to be working feverishly to stop what we're doing to each other.
Pastor McAfee.
Santita,
Yes, Reverend.
Santita.
Yes.
No one, before I go, no one has the right to kill black people. Black your white is jail time. White your black time. Black your black miller time. But no one has the right to kill black people. No one. Or anybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, but Pastor McAfee, are we making any steps toward, just toward dealing with that? Because like you said, we have to be on parallel tracks. I have a couple of minutes before we go.
Well, we have great people at the table now talking. And I think the slogan is no one has the right to kill black people. I love that. And you all will hear that again. Everything, you eat one at a time. And we're hungry.
Everybody, I want you to call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. We can't wait to hear from you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, as we break down the charges and what all of this meant and what it means. And, Attorney Hoffler, what about an appeal? Many people are beginning to write about that now. Interesting. Could that happen? It seems like the judge dropped a bit of a bomb, C.K. Hoffler. It's almost as if he was giving the defense a gift. He said, listen to what Maxine Waters said. Because of what she said, that's the basis for an appeal. I said, well, wait a minute. You didn't question the jury. I mean, there's so many questions we have. But of course, our legal eagle, the people's attorney, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of Rainbow Push, president of the National Bar Association, more than 65,000 lawyers, the largest Black Bar Association in the world. She's with us today. And of course, we want to thank you, Pastor McAfee, all the work that you do. We're so grateful to you, senior pastor of the New Salem Missionary Baptist Church. And on behalf of Jonathan and I, thank you for taking care of our daddy up there this week.
Anytime.
Getting him fed good food and slices of pie. So everybody calls it 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. And please answer the Twitter question. We want to know what you think about about this. Where will policing go in the United States? What do you think? Do you think it's going to change, or do you think things are going to be the same? Better, worse, the same? 1-866-594-HOPE. Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Back in just a few minutes. Pastor McAfee left us, and Reverend will be returning at the top of the hour. Thank you, CK, for your patience. We're coming right to you, Jonathan.
Yep.
You still there, my beloved brother? There you go. What do you make of this after the Derek Chauvin verdict? 6 killed by police across America in a 24-hour period.
You asking me?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, but yeah,
okay.
I'm going to send this to you.
What do I make of it? Business as usual, unless we make sure that there's change. That's proof positive that, some police officers just think this is a one-time miracle. They feel they don't have to be held accountable. And that's why we must pass the George Floyd Justice Policing Act quickly. And that's why the Justice Department needs to get in Minneapolis and make it clear that there were other cities that would be next, because they don't need to stop at Minneapolis. And they need to have be determined, which I believe they are, to bring about change in those communities, not just through the investigation, but where does that lead? Because as Reverend McCafferty said, they've done this before, been there, done that. There's a lot of skepticism because it didn't lead to anything that was concrete. So those days have to be over. I believe I'm optimistic that they will be, but we have a lot of work ahead. So that's what I think. Business as usual for the police throughout the country because they think it's a one-time miracle and it won't hit them. So we got to change that narrative, and that's going to take community involvement as well.
Jonathan, what did you make of that?
Which one?
6 people killed by the police, and you and Frank in a 24-hour period.
It appears to be business as usual. When you start getting into some of the cases, Santita, it's like you have to address these societies. Mental health is tragic, but if you read through it, what's an officer going to do seeing someone with a knife? You can't tell who's the aggressor at that one moment.
It's true. Well,
I mean,
welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Of course, that's our pastor. May he rest in heavenly peace. Boy, oh boy, conducting a heavenly choir, Jonathan. Reverend Clay Evans, victory, victory, victory is mine. It has been. But there's a lot going on underneath the surface. So let's talk about this on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson, and we want to hear from you. What is your reaction to the Chauvin verdict? What do you think is going to happen with the 3 other police officers who will be tried? Should they be found guilty as well? 2 other persons were kneeling on. They were on top of George Floyd as Derek Chauvin was on his neck. So I want to know what you think about all of this. And the Department of Justice has gone into, the U.S. Department of Justice has gone into Minneapolis to examine the police patterns and practices. Wow, there's a lot going on, everybody, a lot. And so we have got Reverend Frank Watkins. The 20th anniversary of the book that he and former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. co-authored is about to come out. A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights. Jonathan Jackson, national spokesman for Rainbow Push. And, of course, attorney C.K. Hoffler, a National Bar Association president. And then, of course, chair of Rainbow Push, attorney C.K. Hoffler. What do you make of this conviction, and what do you make of the possibilities that now people are floating for about an appeal? Alan Dershowitz said yesterday, or a couple of days ago, that the perfect foundation has been laid for an appeal. No sequestration of the jury. What the judge said about Maxine Waters. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think even when there's no perfect foundation for an appeal, there's always an appeal.
Okay.
So I expected there to be an appeal in this case. I just didn't expect the judge to make gratuitous comments on anything that, and sometimes judges do that. And I always think it's bad, it's ill-advised because it gives the other side a modicum of hope, and they may not have been thinking that, and now they are thinking that. But in this case, there was going to be an appeal on multiple grounds. The judge made rulings along the way. Many of them we didn't hear because they had bench conferences, which is when the parties go to the bench, or the attorneys go to the bench, and the judge rules on an issue, and we may hear just denied or granted, and we don't really know what the argument was. And so all of that is for purposes of the record. So there was going to be an appeal regardless. We have to just look at the gratuitous comment as just that, a gratuitous comment that was unfortunate, not what I like to see ever, but it does happen in the context of a courtroom, and the judges are king in that courtroom and queen, and they sometimes make comments that are just unfortunate, and in this case, awful. But in terms of the verdict itself, Reverend said this was a slight or a slim legal victory. It was a slim legal victory, but nonetheless a victory. I call it a small victory, just a small victory overall. But from a legal standpoint, convicted on 3 counts across the board, the jury spoke very, very loudly. Whether the question of sequestration is going to hold in a court of appeals, I thought the jury should have been sequestered. However, there are a lot of juries that are not sequestered that sit in judgment on issues like this and other issues of importance to the United States. And that is not an appealable issue that goes through, but it just depends on the Court of Appeals. This Court of Appeals is conservative, like many of the Court of Appeals right now are conservative. That's why we have to diversify the bench. The previous administration was able to get in people who are very conservative, and it just depends on the panel that's selected, and it depends on the issues that are presented for the appeal. But he's going to be in jail while he's appealing his case. So I just want to be clear, as far as I know, unless there's something different that happens at the sentencing and the judge does something that is unforeseen, Derek Chauvin will be in jail. He will appear for his sentencing hearing from jail. He might have on a suit. More than likely, he'll have on his jail suit. And he will submit to sentencing like every single other American who's convicted of a crime. Now, what will the judge do? I do see there will be some type of leniency argument based on the fact that he's not been convicted of prior crimes. However, this is where all that evidence that we knew, but the jurors didn't know about his record, about what he's done, and we talk about all those, you hear 18, you hear 20. I haven't seen the record, so I can't confirm how many other complaints he had, how many other chokeholds he's had, how many other people died at his hands. All of that becomes relevant, and the prosecutors could well ask for more, because there is going to be, and there usually is, given some credibility to the fact that he's a first offender. But that could be balanced against the fact that he spent time, 9 minutes and 29 seconds, killing, murdering, in cold blood George Floyd, and the jury saw that. So there's going to be appeal. The sentence, the judge will probably want to be more lenient, and the prosecutors are going to make case for a harsher sentence because of all of the other things. There will be an opportunity for people to send letters and everything on his behalf and against him. And he might make a statement at the sentencing. I think if he makes a statement, that will probably count against him, because what he's going to say is, I'm sorry, I'm just sorry, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry. Well, a man is dead, and you sat there and killed him for 9 minutes, murdered him 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and the world has seen it. So saying I'm sorry at this point will maybe not mean much to the family, but it might mean something to the family. But I would imagine that someone from the family is going to speak at the sentencing hearing. I would imagine that someone from the family will ask that there be the most severe sentence, because even if you are a strong Christian and you feel that, let God take care of this, which we all do, in a situation like this, you have the right to say and to reflect what you feel as family, having gone through this. And by the way, George Floyd's family has watched hundreds of times, and during the trial, a good 25 to 30 times, the video of their loved one being murdered, brutally murdered. And they probably walked away from that trial feeling worse, because it was proof positive what they already knew, that was dissected with a minute detail in a very strong and persuasive way, just how bad the murder was. So, when we trust our eyes 8 minutes and 46 seconds, what we believed in the beginning, that was one thing. But for it to be dissected by experts across the board, medical experts, police experts, people who helped to train Derek Chauvin in his own police department, and to hear how bad it was, is even more painful. It compounds the pain, I would imagine, for that family. So all of that they can express in the sentencing, and they probably will, and they should.
Jonathan, what about accountability? I mean, much has been made about justice versus accountability. Is there any comfort anybody can get from this verdict?
Well, Santita, the problem, again, I said I had a sigh of relief. Was there any joy in me? No. It's the tape that was seen around the world that a traumatized 17-year-old video that was trying to go down to the end of the block to get something, a piece of candy or something. That did it really take a month of a trial in the United States to confirm what everyone else had seen, what everyone knew had happened? And the relief was is that the worst did not happen. So it's like we have diminished goals for justice, and we are achieving them now. That we're just hoping that there wasn't that much racism in the case. And did it really take all of these witnesses that did not know each other that could corroborate their story? What did it say when all those witnesses wouldn't have had enough credibility to go against those 4 officers that were lying? So we needed the video at broad daylight, 365 degrees angles. In some ways, I was just sad that we haven't made more progress for justice.
Well, Jonathan,
because there's going to be another case where
Mhm.
all these facts line up, but you don't have the video. And why can we not be confident that justice would have been served?
Jonathan, the video, you've got a state attorney general, former congressman, who marshaled this through, made sure that the charges could be that this man was indictable and that it could be he could be convicted. You have a police chief in Minneapolis who's trying to change the culture of the department. That's why we saw the thin blue line crossed, right? It's not a thin blue line, the blue line crossed. Um, so there were a lot of things that helped, but even then, as you said, we were holding our breath. We did not know how this was going to go. And in fact, we were steeled, Jonathan, to be prepared for this man to be exonerated.
Well, and Santita, we also should talk about how much bad policing costs. Policing primarily can do detective work and protective work. When you have bad policing, not only is someone making 70,000 plus a year, not only is Derek Chauvin still entitled to $1 million pension, 60 plus $1,000 a year as we speak today. He has all of his rights protected. Not only is the federal government, thank God for President Joe Biden, with Merrick Garland looking at the Justice Department going in to potentially charge Officer Chauvin with another case of a teenage black boy in 2017 that he had his knee on his back and on his neck. And not only do these municipalities have to pay these settlements, this isn't paid by the police department. This is paid by all taxpayers. And where does this money come from? Out of the city coffers. That's money that could have gone towards special education teachers, band teachers, local musicians to play in street festivals. So when I tell you 10% of all these municipal budgets is policing costs, and it's going up with the ask for more training, no, you need to have a better selection process so you don't put so many racists on the police department. And in conclusion, a solution, community policing works. You have to get more people from our community on the police force that know these children, know these families, and it would reduce the tension.
Fixico from Los Angeles. What's on your mind today? Fixico?
Yes, greetings, Sister Santita and panel. Had Trump still been president, the Chauvin verdict and climate would have been different. But even before the George Floyd trial, we have been through an era of great suppression, and now there's a window of opportunity that we should fill with proactive expressions in the form of a cultural revival like the Harlem Renaissance, except this time our heroes and sheroes should be historic and contemporary freedom fighters, freedom receivers, and freedom supporters of all races, cultures, and genders. There's a great energy that has been built up with the protests, and we must work to direct it by forming proactive alliances to find common ground with people who don't look like us, using every area of human endeavor to get our point across, and we must be the leaders of it. Thank you. I'll take my answer off to it. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I think he's speaking to what you were saying, Jonathan, about these leaders coming from the community, the police. We have the attorney general who came from the community. We have the the police chief who sued the police office, who sued Minneapolis Police Department about their racist practices. And so things are a little different there. I mean, will this happen? Could this happen in Chicago, for example? Do you think?
Oh, well, that's another problem. So even in Ohio, where McCare was killed, and
Mm-hmm.
where in Louisville, Kentucky, and then now I can't keep up with all these cases where you see the officer got fired. No, you cannot fire an officer in Chicago on those grounds. Uh, it took over 400 days to get the tapes released of the Quan McDonald's. The city had paid a settlement before there was a trial and anyone was charged. That's bribery under any statute of the definition of bribery. So cities have to stop participating with their other government agency, the police department, and handing out bribes before there's justice. It's supposed to be settlements, not bribery. If you're paying people not to bring their case forward because it's so strong, and you're willing to use the city's resources against people that cannot afford this, that's bribery, and we need to stop it. We need to push for justice. On this Sunday, think of the book of Isaiah, pushing for justice, and people should have high expectations for justice, not low. And that's the part that I rejoice in the goodness of people and God on having delivered us on this first part. But I'm also have a pain in my heart to think that our expectations for justice have now stooped so low. Of course, that was murder, and it took this much evidence and grief, and it cost the city an additional $65 million to protect Minneapolis because they didn't know which way the verdict was going. So all the businesses that get bored up, all the National Guards, they came all through Illinois. We're going in the wrong direction as a society.
Absolutely. Anita from North Carolina. Anita?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you?
Great. Great hearing your voice.
Okay. I have my mask on, so I hope you can hear me.
Of course.
I'm really upset about this. The children are without a father. Everything else is not even on my mind. And the reason why over a $20 bill and all these silly things, I mean, someone's retarded that's running the government. I mean, we have to accept that as human beings. We can't trust them to make jobs for us, keep our environment clean, safe, and healthy, while they're going around to everybody's country tearing it up so they can kill people over $20 and then have children be without the grandfather and the father and maybe the great-grandfather. This is crazy. And my Congressman, Jesse Jackson Jr., was doing a fantastic job. And they sought to do away with him and bring fake charges and all kind of crazy stuff. And I was hurt. It took the South Side of Chicago forever to come up from slavery and to be progressive and to produce Barack Obama with your father making sure that he could get in. And they're tearing up stuff, and no one's fixing it, and they're going to tear it up again. So I don't know what else to say, but no one gets to kill someone else's father and get away with it. I'm sorry. The government has to go. The world has to go. Those kids have to have their day. And this shouldn't be happening.
Well, as we go to this break, I think she said so much. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a very human story, Jonathan, CK, Attorney C.K. Hoffler and Reverend Frank Watkins. Now, today, George Floyd has two daughters. They are without their father. He's got siblings. They are without their brother. I mean, he's got people in his community who loved him. You could see from the testimonies of uh, those who participated in the trial, those who were witnesses for the prosecution. You could see the pain. You have a traumatized community. And quite frankly, we're all traumatized because, Jonathan, we watched a snuff video, a snuff film. And then we got a chance to see it from many different angles. And even then, we didn't know, we weren't quite sure that this would end up in a conviction. And now you're seeing the defenders of Derek Chauvin who are coming out talking about an appeal. And of course, Attorney C.K. Hoffler said appeals will come, but they seem to be
Yeah.
so convinced, Frank Watkins. I have a minute before we go to break.
Yeah, Santita, I think the context, the reason there was so much tension around, well, one reason why there was so much tension around the George Floyd verdict is people were reminded of the beating of Rodney King that was on video, and the police walked free. They saw Eric Garner killed. It didn't even make it to court. And so, you know, there was a lot of tension around this video. And with all that was in play in the George Floyd trial, a 9-minute and 29-second video, eyewitnesses, fellow police officers testifying against him, testimonies of expert witnesses which were fabulous, and the best legal minds. If Chauvin hadn't been convicted under those conditions, it would have been a catastrophe legally and for the society as a whole. So that's why there was so much tension around the George Floyd case, in my judgment.
Everybody, let us continue this conversation. Call us at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. Let's talk about this this verdict. I want to know what you think. What are your thoughts? And where do you expect all of this to go, everybody? Let's talk about it on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. Got a tremendous panel. The only person who is not at the table, it's you. Call us at 1-866-594-HOPE. Back with more of Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Just a few minutes.
Can I say it one more time? If I were
Ah, Jonathan and CK. Hmm.
Hey, Santita
Yes.
and Jonathan, I do offer a different perspective on the civil cases. I really do, because that's what I do.
Okay.
And I do hear Jonathan's point, and I respect his point. I just offer a different perspective on that.
Please offer it. Give it. Please give
Well,
it.
the perspective is this. In our system of justice, whether we like it or not, there are two avenues that people can pursue if someone is killed, murdered at the hands of law enforcement, or frankly, anyone. They could pursue the criminal, which is what the state does. So they are merely witnesses if they're called to testify, or they have civil recourse. So my view is, why shouldn't Black families, like white families and other families, have the ability to avail themselves of the civil recourse? Of course, that's the only way that they will get a chance to testify, to speak their truth. Because when the state puts on a case, it's about making the case for the criminal charges. But in a civil situation, they have the ability to pursue justice, because a lot of times there is no justice in the criminal cases. We saw that in the OJ trial, if you want to bring up examples. And so it's just it's what our system allows to happen. I don't view it as bribery. I view it as justice, because there's no amount of money, of course, that will bring back their loved ones. But that is not in lieu of a criminal proceeding. And a lot of times it doesn't have an impact, because it's expected that there is going to be a civil resolution. And sometimes the civil trial doesn't take place until after the criminal trial, or the civil suit is filed until after, because they want the evidence from the criminal case. I've got cases where there's a civil and criminal proceeding simultaneously. I have gone to the criminal trial sat in, because once the criminal trial is over, and after they have filed their appeals, at some point I can do a Freedom of Information Act request and get all that evidence of all of that, because otherwise I'm seeing it like everybody else, and I'm not entitled to it. and I can use that in the civil case. That's how it works. Sometimes police departments and others, like corporations, they find that the risk is so high, they prefer to settle. Why? Because we can go to trial, spend millions of dollars both sides, or hundreds of thousands of dollars both sides trying the case. You put the decision in the hand of a jury, which is risky for both sides, and then one side's going to win, the other side's going to appeal, and then we'll go on and on and on and on. It can go on for 6, 7, or 8 years. For a family who is sitting there having to go through depositions and all of that requires, which is a war. Civil trial is a war. When you have a criminal trial, the only people that have to go through all that are people who are going to be witnesses, and the family, it will see it play in trial. But in a civil trial, it is much different. They can fit into all those depositions, and it takes a lot to work up the case and to get ultimately to court, which could take about 2 years. So it's a risk assessment, which everyone does. It's just, and so you can, and the other side will do a risk assessment and put money on the table for the civil liability. I'm in favor of that because I want that family to be made whole as much as they can. They will never get their loved one back, but they should be availed of all of what this system has to offer them that white folks and everybody else has the ability to get. That's just a perspective.
You know what? I hear you. On the other side of the break, I certainly want to hear. I'd love for you all to talk about that because I think also there's a political angle to it too. There's a whole lot, but I think you make a convincing case. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Stay right there. We are having a stirring conversation. You should be with us on Facebook, on the Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior page, and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, because we are having a conversation about the Chauvin verdict and what it means to policing, what it means to see these families get settlements. What does it all mean? We're going to be talking about that at 1 594 HOPE, 1 594 4673. We want to hear from you. What do you make of this case? What do you make of all of this? There's so much to talk about on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Back in just a couple minutes. Thank you for listening to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. For more information on upcoming shows and guests, please visit our website at www. Oh, I'd love to hear you all talk about that. Great.
I think Jonathan's point is not so much, well, I don't think he's against civil settlements at all. I think it's a matter of timing. I think the situation in Chicago was the settlement was almost before there was an indictment. Mm-hmm. And then in the Chauvin case, the settlement was in the middle of the trial, and people worried about whether it would influence, the jury. And 2 members were dropped from the jury pool because they did say that it would influence them. And then, of course, there's a civil case after the verdict where you can use the information, which could potentially enhance the settlement.
Well, and I think the Chauvin trial, the settlement happened, I believe, before the trial. Oh, that's always the case, though.
Hold on, everybody. I want please give us that when we get on the other side. And you need to get rolling back. Yeah. Hey, everybody, welcome to Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. It's Sunday, April 25th, 2021. We hope that you're having a wonderful weekend. Derek Chauvin, convicted on all three counts. What do you make of that, everybody? What do you make of the fact that in a 24-hour period, in the aftermath of this verdict, six more people were killed by police in the United States just in a 24-hour period? Well, let's talk about this at 1 866 594 HOPE, 1 866 594 4673. And please join us on the Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior page on Facebook and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And we want to hear from you. We want to get your thoughts on the Twitter poll. Will the Chauvin verdict change policing in America for better, for worse, or not at all? Well, 60% of you say it won't change anything. 30% of you say that it will actually worsen relations between the police and the citizens. 9% of you say, don't know. Well, we'll see. So I want you to call us at 1 866 594 HOPE, 1 866 594 4673. Of course, reach out to Reverend Jackson on Instagram at Rev J Jackson and on Twitter at Rev J Jackson. He wants to hear from you. Second degree unintentional murder, third degree murder, second degree manslaughter. Derek Chauvin was found guilty of all of these things. He could face 40 years in prison. Maybe that'll be mitigated by the fact that he does not have a record. We will talk with Attorney C.K. Hoffler, president of the National Bar Association, about that. Now, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has put the U.S. Department of Justice in Minneapolis to examine the patterns and practices of the police force in Minneapolis, and they have a lot to look at. A 2020 New York Times report found that Minneapolis police used force against Black people at a rate of 7 times, at least 7 times, that of white people from 2015 to 2020. Wow. A 2020 NBC News report found that something else disturbing was happening between 2015 and 2020 as well. Minneapolis police used neck restraints 237 times, and in 16% of those incidents, people would lose consciousness. Well, in a city that is 19% Black, 60% of those subjected to these neck restraints and rendered unconscious were Black people. 60%. 60%. 30% were white, and 2 were Native American. Almost all were male, and 75% were age 40 or under. Wow. So, what do you think about that? And now, things have not changed yet since George Floyd's death. A CNN report this week showed that after Floyd's death, Black people are still subject to use of force in Minneapolis by Minneapolis police at a highly disproportionate rate. As the U.S. Justice Department opens this investigation, we're seeing that. We're seeing that. People are really, really struggling. But we got a whole lot of people who want to weigh in, and we want to weigh in with you. We want to hear from you. 1 866 594 HOPE. And I promise you, Barbara and everybody else, I'm going to read some of your comments on the air. Back with more of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson in just a couple minutes. Phone, okay? Are you on speaker?
Yeah.
No, I need you off the speaker, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Can you speak so that I can make sure we can understand you, hear you?
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. Are you still on the speaker?
Yes.
Oh, no. Can you get off the speaker? Is that possible? We won't keep you long. Hello? Okay. Let me hear you.
Is that better?
That's better. That's better. That's better, but the speaker is just typically not good, okay?
Okay.
Unless you know where the microphone is and you speak directly into it.
Okay.
Okay? But we've got Frank Watkins and we've got CK on.
866-594.
And we've got callers coming in. Okay. Everybody wants to weigh in. So. So you all, thank you so much for weighing in. And Maddie, that must have resonated with you. No one has the right to kill Black people. Yep, Reverend can come up with them. And they resonate so deeply. Thank you for that.
Now, the last song that we just played,
Mm-hmm. Reverend,
Yes.
Daddy, would you like to speak with your guest before we come up?
She get off one. Fred Watkins. Yes, sir, doctor. Dr. CK.
Good morning, Reverend.
You get home today, you out.
I'm sorry?
You get home today, you be out.
I'll be, actually, I'm headed to South Carolina this morning, to Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay.
But I can call you after the show.
Yes. Be sure to make the time, okay?
Okay, I will do that.
Be sure to stop in Kevin Gray's restaurant.
Ooh, if you're going to be in Columbia.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. No, University
It's
of,
amazing.
you're going to you would love it, CK. You would absolutely love it. It's a fabulous place.
wonderful. Done. I'm gonna do that.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, it is a museum, a civil rights museum, but it's also beautifully done. It's just a beautiful restaurant. It's it's beautiful, lovely. It's small, beautiful, and gorgeously done.
Well, I will absolutely stop by.
Oh yeah. Plus the food is great, so there's that. So just a little something about that. Don't wait, honey. Who wants to waste the calories? You kidding me? Ooh, I hate that. But we've got I can't stand that. But we've got Spike Moss on with us, Reverend and Jonathan and Kevin.
Good morning. Morning. How y'all doing? Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Reverend. Good morning, Jonathan.
Oh, it's Kevin
Good
Gray.
morning.
Oh, this is the peppery hour. Okay. Oh gosh, Dad, Daddy.
Yes.
Okay, just trying to make sure I'm not going to keep you long. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No worries. No, thank you for jumping on with us, Reverend Yuri. Okay, it's gonna be wonderful. This is gonna make my job easy. Oh, okay. Okay, we're coming up.
Essence of passion, important and essential. Yes, not an extraordinary. Black lives matter.
Hey, everybody, sounds of blackness. Black lives matter. Amen to that. We're talking about the Derek Chauvin verdict. What do you make of it, everybody? I want you to continue to reach out to us on Twitter, on Reverend Jackson's Twitter poll at Rev J Jackson. 60% of you said that this verdict will not change policing in America. 30% of you say we will get better policing. 10% of you say it'll be worse. Well, what happened, everybody? After the Derek Chauvin verdict, 6 Americans were killed by police across America in a 24-hour period. There's a lot going on. So let's do a round robin with this tremendous panel that we've got coming on. Joining us, of course, is the author and editor of Killing Trayvons, an anthology of American violence, former ACL president in South Carolina. Uh, Kevin Gray. And of course, he's been working with Reverend Jackson for more than 40 years. And then we have got Pastor Todd Urey, Douglas Memorial Community Church, Vice President of Rainbow Push. We have Madam Chair of Rainbow Push, and Reverend Frank Watkins, Jonathan Jackson. Oh, excuse me, so much. So many wonderful people here. Pardon me. So let me go to you, Reverend Jackson. What are we to make of this verdict? Reverend? Reverend Jackson? Well, Jonathan, what about you?
It was a sigh of relief. It was restored some hope in our country, and I take my hat off to Brother Spike on this phone call. An activist. He's been pounding on this pavement for years. Before there were 1080i, high def video cameras, body cameras, someone had to keep this alive. So, Spike, thank you for the good work that you do. Thank you for taking your time to be on this program. And may the world know your name and your good deeds, Brother Spike.
He's done so much, Jonathan, down through the years. Reverend Jackson, are you still with us?
Yes, Spike was our host last week in Minneapolis. Took us everywhere.
Well, what did you see, Spike Moss?
When I with the verdict,
With the verdict, all of the activity last week, you were at the center of it all.
well, I went to the hotel for Reverend Jackson, and we sat with Floyd's family. They had a giant screen that ran all the way across that auditorium, and we sat there and waited on the verdict. And I saw the family jump up with jubilation. I saw them hug each other, cry. I just personally fell back in my chair, sigh of relief, took a breath and teared up. And it's a hard, painful thing because I've said on your show, if you got 25 white police on that force, 22 are going to be racist. Out of that 22, 13 to 15 will be extremists and will already have joined one of those organizations in secret that we should be afraid of because they will kill us. And until you deal with the fact that it's overwhelming amount of white police officers on every police department, and when you deal with that overwhelming amount and you have nothing that challenges prejudice, bigotry, or racism, or the fact they're in the Klan, the skinhead, the Nazis, or the Aryan race, there's no way we can expect change. I met with the U.S. Justice Department, I'd say now 3 days ago. They went on national news and announced that they're going to come in here and they're going to investigate and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. So we went over to Reverend Bethel's church, who is the chair of the Unity Community Meeting, which is Somalians, Native Americans, Latinos, African Americans, white and gay and mentally ill. And they sat there in front of them and told us they're going to be setting up these groups, allowing the people of color to basically come in and vent. But you got on national TV and said you were going to investigate. Now you're saying you want them to vent like they haven't vented over this abuse and this pain that they go through. They've already had that. They already had enough of that. Then she said they're going to open up these files. They're going to investigate the files back 5 years. We then said, that's like you telling the slaves what we're going to get. We got cases in those files. We want them all open. Murder case is not over until you have the person found guilty. These murderers all walk free. We want those cases open. You go back to Washington and you tell them these things. You don't have to say you say it, but you say the community here. We want all them files open and those murder cases. And if they really cared about us, they wouldn't have went on TV, made that speech, and sent one lonely black girl. This black woman did not even know the history of the Justice Department or how long it even existed. She has no secretary. She had no equipment with her to record. So you see how bogus the investigation is when you send a lonely black person with no staff and you fool everybody on TV like you're going to do something different. There are no Minnesota files that they need to investigate. They've been coming here investigating since 1966, and they've yet to pull anything out of the files and do anything for the Native American or the black community, the two communities that suffered the most. The Latinos here, they don't beat them as much, but they stop them, ask for the driver's license, and they cut it in pieces. You here illegally. Within days, they're back in Mexico trying to figure their way out to get back to Minnesota.
Santita?
Yes, Reverend.
There must be no statute of limitations on murder. If the Holocaust survivor today despise a German engaged in Holocaust, in 1945. There's no, to answer the second point is that first time a police officer ever been prosecuted for killing a black person in the history of Minnesota. Certainly, I think that the celebration is global, but the application was local. They said that people all over the world saw a man dying in the hands of police. And people thought, but technically it only applies to Minnesota. It doesn't apply to Macaulay in Ohio, the young man in North Carolina. So we must have like, I call it the first time, not a touchdown. Touchdown would be when the Congress passes the law and Biden kicks the extra point. So right now we have a law that's very strong in Minnesota, but what about Mississippi? South Carolina, Arkansas does not apply to those states. To be clear, first time, not a touchdown.
First down.
The McAfee raise is so important. Blacks and whites is jail time. Whites get blacks riot time. Blacks get blacks jail time. We must deny the right of blacks. Nobody has the right to kill black people. Nobody has the right to. We must get vigorous. Blacks and blacks or browns as anybody else.
The family of Emmett Till is still looking for justice because there's still one of the persons alive that killed Emmett Till.
Well, let me go to you. Let me just go around this discussion. Kevin Gray, you've written the book, Killing Trayvon's an Anthology of American Violence. Your response?
Well, I'm actually writing a piece about my encounter with a couple of police officers right after the George Floyd protest here in Columbia, where two cops stopped me for running a green light, really, and we're still going to court with it. And I just started thinking about all of it, and there is the physical violence that we face, but it's also the economic violence that we face. It all starts with racial profiling, and usually the racial profiling is driven by the war on drugs, and it's driven by a lot of other things like redlining. I got a 4-point ticket in a predominantly black area, so that means if I'm found guilty, that I'm going to have a higher insurance rate. I'm going to have to pay that ticket. It's going to create redlining in the area I live in because, of course, the poor pay more. They pay more for insurance because of redlining and where they live. So there's a lot of things that we need to discuss. The Chauvin verdict was important for that family. We have to deal with racial profiling. We have to deal with the fact we have a militarized police force. We have to deal with the war on drugs. We have to deal with the crime rates and in some of the communities that the policing are in, and the lack of development in those areas, or the only development that's going on is more police. We have to organize around the broader issues. We still have to keep talking about qualified immunity. We still have to talk about citizens review boards to hold police and politicians accountable. And then we got to go back and look at the black versus white police shooting rates, the number of police that serve communities that they grew up in or not, if they've had any training on the Constitution and constitutional rights. And then we need to look at police officers with combat experience and where they're being deployed across the country. Because obviously, when we look at what happened in Washington over the certification of President Biden, there have been a lot of white supremacists that have infiltrated police forces. We need to know who's on the police force, what kind of biases they have, and we've got to act accordingly.
Let me go to you, Pastor Yeary. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts kind of are framed around this today marking the 6th anniversary of the start of the uprising in Baltimore after Freddie Gray's death today. That set off a number of responses into Brother Spike Moss's concern about the DOJ pattern and practice investigation. A lot of that's tied to who's in the administration, which administration is driving it. Shortly after Freddie Gray's funeral, Attorney General Loretta Lynch came to Baltimore, and her first official act after being sworn after all of the shenanigans that were put on by the Senate in her confirmation, to indicate that she would launch a pattern and practice investigation that has led to the current consent decree that is in place as it relates to policing in Baltimore. That Justice Department also investigated the Chicago Police Department, but could not effect a consent decree before the Trump administration came to power at the federal level. Remember now, the Trump administration, one of the first things that Jeff Sessions said after becoming Attorney General is that the U.S. Justice Department would not hold police departments accountable. They would not initiate investigations, would not sue police departments for unconstitutional policing. That was actually on the record. So basically, it gave a green light to much of what we have seen over the past 4 years. And so now that Merrick Garland is in place, let's bear in mind that Vanita Gupta, who headed up the Civil Rights Division under the Obama administration, was just this week confirmed on one of the tightest margins to be the number 3 at Justice. We're still waiting on the vote for Kristen Clark to head up the Civil Rights Division. And so I think a lot of this is tied to who's doing the investigating, who's writing the reports, and who is holding local police departments and the states accountable, because they're federal dollars that are attached to the policing function. That's the authority that comes from the federal government. I do believe that in Minnesota, the U.S. Justice Department, along with Attorney General Keith Ellison, will probably be able to come away with some teeth tied to the accountability that needs to happen in Minneapolis. But we don't have enough Keith Ellisons in state attorney general's offices. We don't have enough Kristen Clarks, Vanita Guptas in state oversight roles. And so we've got to make sure. My response was I took a deep breath and then recognized that one victory was one victory. We still have a slate of fights still ahead of us in different states with different laws and different mechanisms of accountability. And so this is not the time to be jubilant too long. Get your shout in and then put your shoes back on, because we got more work to do. Amen.
Amen to that. Let me bring up Attorney C.K. Hoffler, before I even go to the callers, in a couple of minutes. Will the George Floyd Policing Act, will this make a difference?
Santita, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act will make a big difference. It depends on the version that's passed and signed into law. But as I understand it, the big fight right now is over qualified immunity, whether the police officers will be held personally accountable or not, and whether it's just the policing departments. But whatever, it is so comprehensive that if it is passed in 80% of the form that was conceived by primarily by members of the Congressional Black Caucus, it will be critically important, because it would stop in their tracks some of the behavior legally that these officers throughout the country have been doing and have been using to kill Black and brown people. But it cannot just stop there. And that's the key. There's got to be buy-in in the community. There's got to be continued and sustained community involvement. There have to be policing commissions that are engaged as well. On a state level, the fight has got to continue. Even if the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is passed, on a state local level, there still needs to be a fight. And the community organizations, the religious organizations, the grassroots organizations have to be in high gear, not full gear, but high gear, if we really want to change. And we should have the Justice Department not just have an investigation into pattern and practice in Minneapolis, but in multiple cities, because what we saw in Minneapolis is replicated in most urban areas throughout the country. So there's so much work to be done. But I think we can collectively breathe a sigh of relief, but that sigh of relief should give us fuel for the extraordinary work that we all have to do ahead.
Let me go to, Jonathan, your thoughts.
No, please continue on, Santita.
Oh, okay.
I'm enjoying listening.
I heard that. Reverend Jackson, do you have any thoughts before we go to the callers? Well, you know what? Let me go to you, Fred. Fred from Los Angeles. What's on your mind?
Hello, Santita, and to your panel. Well, there's 4 things I want to address on this George Floyd Policing Act. But you asked the question, will this change policing? It already has here in Southern California. We had a video with a large woman, either she was white or of Latino descent. She was arrested for a warrant. She put up resistance. The cops threw her to the ground. There were three of them, three white officers. One of them was punching her. This is on video. I saw it. And the other two officers stopped the one that was punching her. Now he's been put on administrative leave. So the other two officers obviously came to their senses. All right. Now the George Floyd Policing Act, it sounds good, but be careful. Number one, be careful for what you wish for. You just might get it. Number two, got some constitutional issues with it. I do not want to surrender the 10th Amendment to the federal government. Number three, we saw there's civil rights legislation already on the books. The federal government has large authority to step in, i.e. the Rodney King case. And number four, it was brought up about Chauvin's pension. Well, you got the Pension Guarantee Act, so he's entitled to the credits he's already earned.
Is there any scenario under which people should lose their pensions? Fred?
Not under the Pension Guarantee Act.
No. I'm not. Slavery was legal at one time. I'm asking you what's right and what's wrong.
Not under the Pension Guarantee Act, because people were working 30 years, or 29 years, 11 months, and 29 days, and the companies were letting them off back in the 80s. We're letting them go back in the 80s and the 90s. That's why we have it.
No. That's why I'm asking you. You feel that he is justified. He has a right to his pension. I'm just asking you a question.
I'm biased on that, having put in 31 years in government, but he's entitled to the credits.
Okay. I mean, I'm not mad with you. I'm just trying to get your thoughts on this.
I see what you guys are talking about. He's been convicted of murder, and we all saw the video, and other officers do this, and they still walk away with their pension. Just think, we'd be hearing that he had 19 years in. Just think if he was, I don't know what their policy is, but just think if he was had the 20 in and was 50 years, I guess it's 50. I don't know what their minimum is. LA is 50, and had met the minimum, we'd just be a whole different ball game. Santita, the first thing he would have did was resign and retire, and it would have reshaped the whole case.
Well, hold on, Jonathan. We saw this happen with John Burge here in Chicago. I have a minute. Your thoughts?
Well, there has to be crimes that you do in office that forfeit some of your benefits because you did not provide honest services to the community. It was cowardice on the Minneapolis Police Department not to bring charges earlier on Mr. Chauvin in 2017 when he had a prior case of putting a knee on someone's neck. So he's had no sustained cases. That means the people just didn't have the credibility to go up against this lying officer. He went from testifying to testifying. And I really don't think on another issue, these officers ought to be able to take the Fifth Amendment on in their criminal trials as a policeman. I don't want to know what you did afterward. I want to know what you did with the gun and the badge, with the power and the authority on your job. So I think that's even a body of law that has to be fixed in the future. What did you do on your job that you were paid to do? I think that ties in directly with the pension. He was a liar and a murderer before this case.
Everybody, continue to call us at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673, talking to you about the Chauvin case. And, wow, what comes behind that? So much is happening here in the United States of America and all around the world. Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. We want you to call us and push at 773-FREEDOM throughout the week. Back in just a minute.
Couple of constitutional problems. The 10th Amendment.
I do too.
And
same thing, right?
The Fifth Amendment that Jonathan attacked. I'm against the 10th.
I think you tried. I think that they're accused of, and everything else. You know, unless it's been adjudicated, I don't think that you can talk about stripping people of their constitutional rights. And that when you do that, that always comes back to fight the victims, or the victim client, the victim, black people in America, people who are oppressed. They once you go after the
even your worst enemy's constitutional rights, you affect the constitutional rights of everyone.
And Santita, to the caller's point, it's not accurate what he said. Some states do have laws that provide for the forfeiture of public pensions once you're convicted of a crime. And so some have the ability to garnish public pensions if you're convicted of a crime. And so it requires us to look at, again, because he's convicted under state law, we have to look at Minnesota state laws as it relates to his pension. And if his pension is left intact after we've seen such an egregious act, then we need to also make sure that the state legislature is pulled in to make sure that the law is changed. That's why we have to take a breath and keep on moving.
Reverend Uri, a part of the sentence could be restitution, and that restitution could be that pension.
Right, that's the garnishment, but that's if the state law in Minnesota allows for that. I'm not sure that the judge, he can impose a restitution, but he may not be able to garnish the pension depending on what the state law says. So I'm looking at a map.
Stand by.
Right.
We're coming in. I want you all to respond to him when we get on the other side, okay? Right. Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, our home church, Jonathan, Reverend Clay Evans. Boy, the victory shall be mine. Amen, amen, amen. Ooh, boy, oh boy, so many wonderful memories. Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson throughout the week. We need your support at Rainbow Push. So please, 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 everybody who's watching us today, Renee and Shirley from Philadelphia and Maddie and Brian and Carol and everybody, please, please, we need you to go to rainbowpush.org and join the organization. We need you to call throughout the week at 773 Freedom and join us on our Saturday morning forum. Every Saturday, it's streamed live on the various Facebook pages, Reverend Jackson's Facebook page, and of course, of the Impact Television Network, the largest African American owned church network in the country. And we need your support. We need your support. Really, really need it. We're doing work every day. Never closed during the pandemic because people needed to be fed. Children needed Pampers and on and on. That is what we've been doing. But you make that happen. So please give us your support, will you? I wanted Pastor Yuri, you were very eager to respond to Fred, who takes issue with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. He's brought up the 10th Amendment, and I want you to have at it.
Well, I'll leave the 10th Amendment discussion to Reverend Frank Watkins and and my good barbecue man down in South Carolina. Anyway, my issue is with the pension argument. The Supreme Court actually ruled on forfeiture of public pensions back in 1978. It is not an unconstitutional expectation that a public official can lose their pension if they violate the terms of their public employment. That's what the accountability is actually all about. And it actually had to do with Otto Kerner. It was actually based on an Illinois case. And so that's still in effect. Also, states have various laws about pension forfeiture and also pension garnishment. Each state is different. And so you have to look at what the state laws allow. And if the state laws are not comprehensive enough, that's another area that has to be added to the reforms that we're looking at, not just at the federal level, but also at the state level, to make sure that those police officers who, or any other public official who may violate the public expectation and later be convicted of a crime tied to their public duties, that they do not benefit, whether it's an accumulation, if they've accumulated credits and then commit a crime knowing that they're a public official, then they're not entitled to benefit. We don't pay them to violate us. We have to hold them accountable for violating us. And I think that's a more comprehensive discussion that we have to keep going.
Frank Watkins?
Well, on the 10th Amendment, what he's talking about is states' rights. They don't want national standards.
Right.
And what the police, the George Floyd policing bill does is sets some national standards. It prevents racial profiling. It limits the unnecessary use of force. It creates a national registry where you can't be doing wrong things in one department and get fired and then get hired in another department without anyone knowing that, you know, the problems you caused in the previous police department. It establishes new reporting requirements, including when people use force or officers engage in misconduct and routine policing practice like stops and searches. It requires, that all of those be reported. It establishes uniform accreditation standards for law enforcement agencies and so forth. So the bill sets national standards, which, is, from his point of view, a violation of the 10th Amendment of states' rights. Every state should be able to do what they want to do. So you can have some states that allow racial profiling and some states that don't. You can have some states that, pass laws that you can't go from one agency to another in their state. They can go to another state and get a job. So,
Frank, let me ask you a question. We as progressives, do we support ban the box? Which means that when you're hiring people, you don't ask don't ask them if they have a prior criminal record. Does that, if as progressives, if we support that, how do you square supporting a bill or proposed legislation that will require a certain category of people, i.e., police, to give background information about their past criminal records or their past misdeeds? How do progressives deal with that contradiction?
Frank Watkins?
I'm not sure. I think he was saying the same thing I was saying, unless I misunderstood him.
Go ahead, Frank. I'm sorry.
Well, no, this is Todd. I mean, the squaring of it is ban the box. Is you can't ask about prior. It's an after the fact. You don't continue to penalize once the term, whatever that term is, has been served. That's the whole argument around ban the box. We have one here in Baltimore. So the issue of adding this as part of the penalty, the pension piece, I think is where there is a squaring, right? We don't necessarily want to continue a penalty once the penalty's been served, but if we don't institute a penalty, then we have a whole other problem. And to the point about the 10th Amendment, the reason it's not valid, here's how they would enforce it. It's long-standing law that states cannot be forced to enforce federal law. So what the federal government does is they entice the states to apply it. If you want federal funds to support state functions, then you must agree to take on these responsibilities. That's the carrot and the stick. And so many states rely extremely, to a great degree, on federal dollars to be able to perform essential state functions. And if they're going to continue to get that money, this is where the defund conversation takes on a little nuance. If we start attaching the necessity of absolute constitutional enforcement in order to get federal dollars down to the states, you will see the states begin to get into line because they don't want to be put in the position to have to raise state revenues by taxation. It creates a whole quandary, particularly in Republican states that want low taxation. I think it is a necessary conversation and an important tool to use if we're going to get to police reform.
Let me get to some of these callers. Chris from Oak Park, what's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's well.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
What I was thinking about, what if the roles were reversed and the George Floyd had did that act to that officer, and none of the bystanders tried to intervene? They probably would have been brought up on charges for aiding and abetting, and I'm sure it wouldn't take this long to get them convicted. Also, the police union had made comments they were outraged, but they probably spent over $1 million protecting him, and he's still being protected. 23 hours, not general population, and he's no longer an officer. And as far as the DOJ going in there, the police department, their hands is not clean. They've allowed him to do this for 19, 20 years with all his complaints. And also what Jonathan was talking about, he stood on that boy's neck for 17 minutes and the boy went unconscious in and out, and he hit him in the head with a flashlight and caused injuries, and they still did nothing, to that. And also the way the police unions bastardized the qualified immunity, because it's used as another layer of protection where the average person can't get, is another block for them to try to get justice, because the state is protecting them on top of the police union. So the average, it's like unfair, because I didn't enter in a collective bargaining agreements and bargain my rights away if I'm victimized. And, I'm glad for the victory, but you see the aftermath of our people. And there was a white guy with a knife 2 feet or 1 feet away from the cops swinging it, and they did not shoot him. And the young girl in Ohio got shot when the officer had so many different tools in his tool belt to use. He should have tackled her. He could have tasered her, anything. And he's going to have to explain each shot. So he shot her like 4 times. I don't think she should have lost her life.
4 times. Let me go to Jonathan. Did you want to say something?
No, I'm really enjoying this.
Okay, well, let me go to Renee. What's on your mind, Renee?
Good morning, and thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I hope Chauvin gets the maximum sentence, but I'm not holding my breath. Now, Santita, if we have racist police officers who wear police uniforms while on duty and neo-Nazi uniforms while off duty, or who pledge allegiance to the Proud Boys or the KKK, are they going to stop killing blacks? And are prosecutors who may feel the same way as they do going to prosecute them? Like in Chicago, remember just recently in the case of Adam, the first prosecutor lied when he went before the judge, and he tried to say that Adam had tried to he pointed his gun at the policeman or whatever he said. He had lied.
Speaking of Adam Toledo, for people who are not from Chicago, who might not be up on that case.
And by the way, Santita, in cities like Minneapolis and Chicago, where there are so many surveillance cameras everywhere, why can't they find out who's killing black people? In Chicago, we have such a low crime rate. Are some of the people killing black people perhaps policemen by day and KKK members by night? Or are they some of the people providing the guns to the people who do kill black people, people leaving guns in boxes and alleys, people letting people know that there are trainloads of guns that are unguarded, or like the teachers that Eddie Johnson said the police watched on these secret Facebook pages for 10 months teachers who were selling guns and drugs to elementary school students in the Austin neighborhood. We don't know why so many blacks are getting killed. We don't know who's killing so many blacks. And when people are called, like some of the policemen who do it, they end up getting off in most cases. You know, if Chauvin is the first policeman, white policeman, to be convicted of killing a black person. Jason Van Dyke was the first white in 50 years to get convicted, and he's getting out next year, 2022. He got a slap on the wrist. We don't know who's doing it. I just hope it stops.
You were speaking of the rumors of, the stories, quite frankly, of crates of guns being left in the black community, for those of you who are not in Chicago, in the black community, and fully loaded and ready to be shot. Let Pastor Darius Randall, before we go to break.
Good morning, Santita, Reverend Jackson, Professor. Just wanted to share real quick. This is a victory for so many different people and agencies and groups. I just want to give a shout out to the grassroots activists and organizers who was on the ground and who really pressed this nation and the world. You know, because if it wasn't for the riots, which Dr. King said, riots are the language of those who are unheard. If it wasn't for the looting and all that, even though many criticized it, white America felt the pressure of what would have happened if they decided to let Derek Chauvin walk. So I think that the verdict is a result from all those many factors and many those organizers and activists, you know, who are on the ground consistently, you know, and we gotta keep hope alive.
Bless your heart. Well, you know, Spike Moss, I've got about a minute before we go to break. He was speaking right to you.
Well, you know, when they talked about the police being passed around, Minnesota had an arrangement with Denver, Nebraska, and Iowa all these years. If what you do is so egregious you can't stay here, we've been swapping out back and forth each way. But here's something more important. When Jesse took us to meet with the governor, I got a chance to say to the governor that one of the things on the starting point is on your application, your age, your education, your experience, and all of that. I said, but there's no box that speaks to, are you prejudiced, are you a bigot, are you a racist? And if you lie, you fire at will. Now, the reason I bring that up, when they went to the funeral for Wright the other day, the governor got up on the stage and repeated it. The other thing that happened, and I give this credit to Jesse because no one had this opportunity until we went to meet with the governor. And I said to the governor, I want some changes addressed immediately, and I want a committee out of here to make those changes, and I also wanted some changes made on the redlining, which gives people economic opportunity. Immediately after I spoke, the governor's wife said, I want to be on that committee, to the governor. He then gave me his cell phone. All of that is because Jesse was in the room, told me to call him immediately, and he gave me the finance person over the state of Minnesota. We just have to speak up when we have the opportunity, and we have to challenge all the laws. I don't think we need to just know about them. We got to use our lawyers and our politicians to challenge all these laws that we know affect us in the wrong way. He told the truth about Chauvin. That's about 18, 19 charges, and he almost choked to death that 14-year-old boy just before then. But as I told the Justice Department, we have police with 50 to 60 charges in that file. Never been suspended, never been fired, never been charged, never went to court, never went to jail or prison. And that's why I said to the Justice Department,
open up the files.
Don't tell us what you're going to open.
All right. Stay right there. Closing thoughts from this magnificent panel. Throughout the week, 773-FREEDOM is Rainbow Push's number and rainbowpush.org. We need your support. We need your support. We've been open straight through the pandemic because people have needed help from Push, and Push needs your help. Closing thoughts on Keep Hope Alive in just a few minutes. Okay. Well, great. I've marked up a few things. Okay, you all keep talking.
The black community has to get right on the war. young black males throughout our country. And they do that standing on a foundation of being a militarized force. Whenever they pull up to give you a ticket, there's always, I think down here in Columbia, there's always 2 to 3 police cars, to include the K9 car, that pull up behind you. So they're using anything for pretense to stop you. So I said, the guy stopped me, but he said I pulled out of the intersection too quick. All the way through the light on me in the intersection. And so it's just about how do we curb their power and end some of the interactions that police officers have with people. And the main driver is war on drugs.
By the way, Kevin,
This
is CK. I'm headed to Columbia right now with my son because he got an offer from University of South Carolina to play football. And so I'm coming by your way.
And we're open from 1 to 6. We get a lot of parents that come down and come through when they're bringing their kids to school.
Okay.
Shall I connect you all by text?
That would be wonderful.
Let me do that right now. Okay, you should, because you should know Kevin knows everybody in the state.
Know.
And
South Carolina.
That's right. So
Kevin, you'll remember that Kurt Schmoke raised that very issue when he was the mayor of Baltimore, and they laughed at him.
Absolutely. But we worked together. I think we might have worked together with the Open Society Project for a while. And I was involved with several anti-drug war, drug legislation groups at that point in time.
May I say something about this whole situation with guns that your guest touched on? In Minnesota, just like most cities, we have no gun factory, no gun warehouse, no gun wholesale, no gun store. We don't even have guns at a pawn shop near us. So all guns are brought in by the black market controlled by white people. The drugs are the same in every community. They're in charge of that too. We got to get, again, our politicians and our lawyers to bring laws and charges against these things they use to destroy us. I was at a young boy's funeral last night that died the same day that Wright died. And of course, he wasn't on TV because they were gangbanging, but he's 15 years old. I spoke at his funeral yesterday. And the number one thing I said is the problem is children that can't find a job in our community in 9 months can find a 9mm in 9 minutes. And I said I would rather our children had book bags than dope bags. I'd rather they were in a classroom than a cell room. And unless we say that and mean that, we can't change the way he uses those tools to do what your guests are saying is going on in every city. And they've been manipulating us to the point where we became 80% of who's in the prisons of America, knowing good and well America has more prisons than all the countries of the world. So they're tearing the heart out of our manhood.
The interesting thing is that there's a move to legalize drugs and an industry that was built on, for the most part, black people.
Hold on, everybody. Hold on, we're coming up. I'm sorry. Everyone's going to have about 30 seconds. I'm going to give a minute to Spike Moth. Closing thoughts on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Let me get your closing thoughts, C.K. Hoffler.
Santita?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yes, my closing thoughts are we have to keep on fighting. We can have these small victories that mean a lot, especially for the victims' families, but we have to keep fighting on a federal level, on a state level, and especially in the streets. That's how we're going to bring about change.
All right. Reverend Dr. Yuri.
To Madam Chair's point, the Chauvin conviction is a battle win. The war is still raging. You still have 3 other officers who need to be brought to justice in the killing of George Floyd. And we have a long list of fights across the country. This is a season for litigation and legislation, but more importantly, agitation. Take a deep breath, get your shot on, but then put your shoes on because we got to get back to work.
Reverend Frank Watkins.
Well, in my judgment, what's happening now is we're in a power sharing transition period. We will see positive change to the degree that blacks and people of color gain political power in America. Politics is the distribution system for the economic system, and to the degree that there is an increasing balance of political and economic power, to that degree, we will see justice not only in the criminal justice system, but in jobs, job training, public education, housing, healthcare, and more. So continue to register, educate yourself politically, and vote in record numbers.
Spike Moss, 1 minute for you.
Well, I've said everything I want to say. I think the only thing that matters right now, because we're going forward with 4 cases, and we're going to get much more here because it's not going to stop, is I want Reverend Jesse Jackson to consider putting a branch of Operation Push here so we have a permanent vehicle that will go beyond what everybody seems to not want to do on the ground and begin the fight here, maybe under that banner. But I want him to give some thought to that and bring a chapter here, and we just build a chapter here, because this is going to go on here from ground zero.
Jonathan, I'm sorry, I forgot about you. 30 seconds belong to you.
Honored to be on the call. Love you, Brother Spike. Keep on fighting. You've been leading the way up there in Minnesota. In the words of my father, Reverend Jackson, this is a first down, not a touchdown. We still have to encourage people to vote. Voting matters. We can put our elected officials in. Having Keith Ellison as the Attorney General, that matters. Congratulations, Minnesota, for laying the groundwork. We have to continue fighting. And the judges. We have to keep our eye on the big picture. There was a lot of discrimination and a lot of selective judgments that judge made on trying to steer the case. You could look into George Floyd's background, but not Officer Chauvin's background. Bad policing is very expensive. We need to fix it.
Kevin Gray, I almost forgot about you. Your book, Killing Trayvon's, an anthology of American violence. 20 seconds.
And that's Killing Trayvon's plural. I think everybody's pretty much said what I would have said or thought about. The main thing is organize, and you can't just organize when there's a crisis or when there's a case of police misconduct in one particular place. You got to organize all the time. You have to get in the streets. You have to organize and pull together organizations like the Rainbow Push Coalition in communities that do political education and hold people accountable.
Amen to that. And everybody throughout the week, we need your support at Rainbow Push, rainbowpush.org, 773-FREEDOM. Call us, and please get involved. And throughout the week, you can catch me on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul, every day from 6 to 8 Central Time. Keep hope alive. God bless everybody. Thank you for listening to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. For more information on upcoming shows and guests, please visit our website at www.keephopealiveradio.com.